Everybody start by going File, New, and let's choose Large Objects Feed again. And we're going to do some more simple extrusions and using curves to create cutting planes, and so that way we can create a complex but planar objects that can be unfolded. Since this is a brand new file, we're going to have to go to the units because I don't have a template saved. And I'm just going to change the feet, and I'm going to go 16th. So that way it reads that way. And we did that yesterday as well, so that should just be something that you're used to doing.
Ready?
No. Anyways, so I'm going to go to the Interpolated Curves. We used this a lot yesterday. And you guys can follow along. This is all going to be approximate, so make something similar, so that way you can get the experience of doing it, but don't worry about it being exactly the same. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create, without my ortho line, I'm just going to create another organic shape, kind of similar to what I was doing yesterday. And I'm just going to do another curve like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to close this curve up. So now I've created a complete solid object, and I'm going to join it all together. And you'll see it says one closed curve, which is good. With closed curves, you can obviously make planar surfaces, which we're going to do. So a planar surface. I'm going to turn shaded mode on so that way you can see the surfaces and they're not just wireframe. And I'm going to go ahead and just extrude this surface upward. Let's see how much we're going here. So to tell how high you've been extruding something, you can see all the way down here in the bottom, it's going to give you a number. And right now, because I'm pointing at it, at that number, it says -43. And that's because I am at, and now I'm at 19. So if you see here, I've extruded this up and it says that I'm at 19 feet. So that way you'll recognize that this distance from here to there is actually 19 feet. And so that's just a good indicator if you're trying to do things approximately, you'll know exactly how high this object is. So I'm going to go maybe 20 feet because that looks good. And then I'm going to move this.
Is it solid?
It's going to be a solid, yes. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything. And because I'm going to draw in front view as well, I want my object to be behind the axis here. So that way what I'm drawing in top view will be in front of my object. So I'm just going to go ahead and just move it slightly past it like that. I'm going to move it just slightly over like that. So now I got it in place. So when I'm drawing in front view, I'll draw in front of my object. And so we're just going to do a few more of what we did yesterday. So what the first step I'm going to do is, you make sure to turn your object snaps off so that way it doesn't snap to your object in the background when you're in front view. And I'm just going to start to create some curves that I'm going to use to cut this object. And right here I'm just going to do a dip. So one dip here, and this one's going to be, don't worry too much about what the shape's going to actually be because this is all just approximate. I'm just trying to get you guys comfortable with using these commands. And so the next cut I'm going to do is going to be something like that. And so you can see the shape that this is going to produce. And so I'm going to do exactly kind of what we did yesterday, which is now take these curves and extrude these curves. So extrude curve command. And I'm just going to run them right through the object like that. And instead of doing the commands we did yesterday, which was the create solid, using a series of planes. And we also used curve from two views, and that was using just curves. This time, now what we're going to do is actually use our Boolean functions, and we used those a little bit yesterday to do some cutting, and we've used it in the past week to do some splitting and cutting, and so I'm just going to reiterate it one more time here. And so what we need to do is go to Boolean Split. Now, if you see these two spheres right here in the side, these are going to be your solid tools. And it's essentially going to get you the same exact commands as if you were to just go up to the top and start to type Boolean. And you can see you have your two objects, your difference, your intersection, your split, your union, and these are all Boolean commands. Right here in this solid toolbox, you're going to see the same exact functions: the Boolean union, difference, intersection, split, and so on. And so the one we're going to use is Boolean Split. And so what the command line asks you is select the surface, our poly surface, to split. So that's going to be the initial object that I drew, or extruded. And then from there, you can press enter, and now it's going to ask for the cutting object. And I'm just going to do one at a time here. So I'm going to do this dip first, and I hit enter. And you'll see now, if I hide that, and I also hide this curve, it has carved into our shape. So it's created a carving motion, and it's actually made our object remain solid. So what I mean by it remaining solid is that the surface was retained, whereas if you were to simply split, which I'll do on this one is to show you. So if I do just a simple split, and I hide this object and this object, you'll see that it's open. So what the Boolean does is it actually retains the object as a solid, whereas splitting will not. Splitting,
How is it open?
it's open because I just used the split command.
I use it, but mine is.
I used just split, not Boolean split. So Boolean split was this side, which created a solid. Split is this side, and it didn't create a solid. It actually, left it open. And so that's the major difference between splitting the object and using Boolean. And so depending on the result that you want, it's good to be aware of which one of these you want to use. And so we don't want the object to be open, right? Because then it's not really a closed poly surface or a solid object. So we're just going to continue to use the Boolean split. So I'm going to go ahead and split this other side here. So I'm going to select the object, hit enter, and then I'm going to select the cutting. And this time I'm going to say delete input. I'm going to say no, just to show you what the results are. And I'm going to do the cutting, and I'm going to hit enter. And if I hide this, you can see that it created that cut for me, but it also retained the object. And let me just move it to the side. It retained the object as a whole. So even though it cut it for me, it also kept the original version. So if you didn't like the way it looked, you still have that original version. And that's what happens when you say delete input no. So what it's essentially doing is it's not deleting this object that right before you cut, it doesn't delete it. And so if you go ahead and do the Boolean split again, and you say yes to delete, once I split this object isn't going to stay anymore. It's going to go away, and it's just going to be the new split version. So I'm going to go ahead and just finish this up here. If I hide this one, you can see that cut's taken care of. And then now I'm going to do the bottom. Before I do the bottom, I'm actually going to, I feel like this is a little close to the bottom here. So I'm going to turn on my gumball, and I showed you this yesterday. I'm going to hold shift and control and select an edge, and it's going to allow me to select just the edge here. And I'm going to just bring it down slightly. That's too much. Now I've got it real close there. So I'm going to go ahead and do Boolean Split again. Select the object, hit enter, and then select the cutting plane. And it's Booleaned it for me. So when I hide this in the other surface, you can now see that it's cut it. So this is really similar to the exercises we were doing yesterday. This is just another method of creating the same result as what we created yesterday. If you remember yesterday, we just simply took profiles of curves and we extruded them into each other, made sure they were all overlapping, and then we created a solid from those surfaces. Today what we did is we actually made a planar surface, extruded it up, and then we Boolean split from curves. So in this we used planar surface, we used interpolated curves, and we also used Boolean split.